Hi everyone, welcome back to Natural Science. We have a very important goal that needs to get done today, and that is for you to share with me what you have thought about our global climate change unit and the discussions that we've been having in class and what you remember from large group. And so the purple sheet that you picked up when you walked in is the instructions for the essay, and the rubric is on the back. There's also a sheet of paper that if you decide to handwrite, you would want to write your name at the very top of this paper, and you would staple the loose leaf paper with your essay written on it on top of the instructions so that the rubric is visible on the back. If you decide that you are going to type your essay, which is perfectly acceptable, especially since I'm gone today, you would need to write your name on the rubric and hand the rubric in, because I will be using that specific rubric to give you feedback on how well you did on describing your thoughts on different dimensions of the essay. Now, that being said, what I want to do here is dive into the instructions for the essay. I know that the instructions look very long, but I've purposely done that so that there is no confusion as to what the expectations are. And if you went through each of these three paragraphs step by step, doing 1A, 1B, 1C, that will help you to chunk this into smaller chunks and make the goal a little bit easier. Now, as I said, this is three paragraphs. If I were to summarize the three paragraphs in very simple terms, the first paragraph is all about you describing how the earth is changing and why this is a problem for humans and plants and animals. The second paragraph is all about you discussing what you think about one of the greatest ethical dilemmas of climate change, which is the size of the human population and what we can do to make sure that the human population isn't too big of a burden on the earth. And the third paragraph is all about you discussing a goal of your choice that you could pursue that could help the planet. And it doesn't have to be a big change. It could be a small change. I'll discuss more of this in a second. Let's start with paragraph 1. Paragraph 1 is all about you describing what is happening to the earth. It says, describe what has happened to our atmosphere that has caused climate change. And I've broken this up into three basic parts, but you're going to end up doing parts B and C 3 times. So part 1 is, which gas have humans put into the atmosphere in unnatural amounts? Do not blurt out the answer. I need to measure what you remember about what we said about what is causing global climate change. And then in parts B and C, you're going to write about 3 things that are changing under global climate change, why this is happening, why these are a problem. And to help you with this, I have several resources that are available so that you can do your absolute best. Let's start with this diagram from large group. Okay, global climate change summarized. You can use this diagram for your essay. It doesn't really tell you what to write, and I have an example of this on the board that will allow you to select essentially 3 of these boxes to write about. So it starts with a change in the atmosphere and how that alters the earth, and the arrows basically show how there are further alterations for this. And so you can pick any of these 3 boxes that you want to write about. Now you're going to have to write about more than just naming the boxes, and I have an example for this up on the board. And so this is pretty close to what you see on the board right now. And this is an example of a graphic organizer that is not the one that you are going to be working off of. And so it starts with a box labeled weather, and then a box labeled furnace, and a box labeled comfort, and there's an arrow going from furnace back to furnace with temperature increase. And I want to use this as an example for you of what you could write and what you maybe shouldn't write that doesn't really tell anything about what you know. So notice up here it says example 1B and non-example 1B down below. The non-example uses the words that are in the box, but it doesn't really say anything about how the boxes are connected to each other or why the boxes are important. So notice how it says weather has a big impact on the furnace. The furnace affects the comfort. A temperature increase from the furnace can affect the furnace. All of those things are true, but it doesn't really get to the how or the why or why that is a problem or a benefit. A better example of a paragraph would be the blue paragraph up above. Changes to weather can have a big impact on how a furnace works. When the temperature drops, an apartment/house thermostat tells the furnace to turn on. This heats the space and makes everyone more comfortable. If the furnace kept running, everyone would get too hot. So when the thermostat reads the temperature increasing, to a certain level, it switches the furnace off. This is called a negative feedback loop. The increase of something switches it off when it gets too large. Now, obviously in this essay, you're not going to be writing about furnaces and the outside and how weather affects furnaces, but I'm just using this as an example to help you to understand the depth that is expected for paragraph 1. So just to sum everything up for paragraph 1, you're going to pick how global temperature or land ice or sea level or weather or where diseases exist on the planet or human food sources or plants and animal extinctions, are those things increasing, decreasing, or staying the same? And why is that a problem? What are some examples and details that you could show that would explain how people and animals and the earth are affected by these changing variables? So paragraph 1, all about how is the earth changing, give 3 examples of how this is a concern and why it affects people. Paragraph 2 is all about one of the ethical dilemmas of climate change. One of the most controversial aspects of climate change is human population control. The ethical dilemma for this is rights of the individual versus survival of the community. And I have a resource card that I'll show you as an example here. This can be projected up on the screen. There are 4 parts to this, and if I were to summarize all these 4 parts, it's basically you describing what you think about human population control. And the best example of this would be China's one-child policy, that the Chinese government told people that they couldn't have more than one child, and that they would be fined or that there could be worse things that are done to that child. And so you could use that as an example, or you could talk about things like how birth control can be used to help us to have the number of children that we would want. This is a controversial issue, and that's why you're going to write about it. I want you to share your strong opinions that you have about this, and I want to remind you that you will not be graded based upon what your opinion is, but how thoroughly you can describe your opinion. So if we were to do this step by step, part A is how can having too many people be a problem? Once we nail down what the concern is, what are 2 positives and 2 negatives of restricting how many children people can have? I know that some of you feel very strongly about restricting how many children people can have, and I want you to share your very strong opinions about this, but justify it with examples of why this should be a concern for us. If you have more negatives than positives, that's fine. This is just an example of the level of detail that I would expect for you to thoroughly describe what your perspective is. Would you support limits on how many children people can have? Why or why not? And what do you think people with the opposite opinion might think of this, whether you agree with those ideas or not? You writing about the opposite opinion doesn't mean that you have to agree with it, but it's really important, this is the critical thinking standard of breadth, for you to think about why there might be differences of opinion about this. This resource card 17, is about this issue. And there's information about China's one-child policy and their population and some questions to help you to think about this. And so the guest teacher could either pause the video with this resource card available. I also have a paper copy that can be projected. And folks, as always, given that I'm gone today, it is really important that you help the guest teacher with these displays, because not writing an essay is not a choice. Okay, I'm telling you that right now. I know that this is a significant task, okay? I know that writing a big essay isn't the most fun thing for a lot of you, but it is the best way that I can gauge what you are thinking about this. I'm telling you right now, if you don't complete an essay by the end of the 80-minute section today, I have to assign you to me so that we can get it done one-on-one. Okay? And if that doesn't sound like a positive prospect for you, if you don't want to lose one of your social mods to be working one-on-one with me, you just got to get your work done in class. Okay? So make good choices so that the outcome that happens here is the outcome that you want and is going to be best for you. Finally, paragraph 3, describe a goal that you remember from the global climate change game. I'd also like to point out it could be a goal that you thought of while you were watching the human footprint video in our last class that you think would be very effective in slowing the changes to our planet. So there are goal card booklets out on the desks. You can read through a goal card booklet and write about a goal that you think would be a great goal to pursue and why. Notice how there are 2 parts to this. Each of these 2 parts are multiple sentences. What would people have to do to help the goal be successful? Be specific and give examples. And so you can think of this as like, what steps would people have to go through in order to make this goal happen? And then letter B, what would be the biggest challenge to the goal being successful? You once again want to be specific and give examples. And so those are the 3 paragraphs of the essay. The expectation while you are working on this essay is that it is silent work time. There are no headphones allowed while you are doing this. People need to be able to concentrate to type or handwrite to do their absolute best. What else do I want to say? You have to turn this in before the end of the mod to the guest teacher and make sure that your name is either on your rubric if you are submitting it electronically, sharing it with me via email, or make sure that you are stapling your essay to the top of the rubric. In other words, I need to get a purple rubric from everybody, okay, with your name on it. Whether or not there is written stuff attached to it or not, that depends upon what choice you make for that. And if you would like to take a break in the middle of a section, the only way that you should be getting a break in the middle of a section today is if you are done with a first paragraph. Okay, so get started writing immediately. You have the remainder of the 80-minute section to do it. I believe in you. I know you can do it. Not doing the essay is not a choice. And so I know you're going to do great. Have a great day, everyone.